The quest for self-determination across Africa is more than a political aspiration. It reflects the deep-rooted struggles of people seeking inclusive governance and recognition on the international stage. Amazonia, now approaching its ninth year of conflict, remains one of the continent's unresolved crises. Yet to gain recognition as a sovereign state. Meanwhile, a historic development has captured global attention. While we look at Amazonia, Israel has become the first nation to formally recognize Somaliland as an independent country, sparking celebrations in Gaza, even as much of the international community condemns the move. Behind this recognition lie strategic and geopolitical calculations that go beyond diplomacy. Today on Flash News, we'll explore Israel's motivations, the implications for regional stability, and what this means for Africa's broader struggles for self-determination. Good afternoon and welcome. I am Tabitha Alcor. Let's begin. Russia on Monday accused Ukraine of attempting to strike President Vladimir Putin's residence in northern Russia, a claim Kyiv dismissed as false, as Moscow warned the incident could harden its negotiating stance and trigger retaliation. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Ukrainian forces launched 91 long-range drones overnight at the presidential residence in the Novgorod region, all of which were intercepted by Russian air defenses. He said there were no casualties and no damage. Meanwhile, Ukrainian's President Volodymyr Zelensky rejected the allegation, saying Moscow was fabricating the claim to justify future attacks, including possible strikes in government buildings in Kyiv. He also added that the accusation was aimed at undermining ongoing peace efforts, the Russian-Ukraine war. President Zelensky made a statement regarding his response to this. Let's take a look.
I don't want to speak with him. He's enemy for me. But I think that it's important to speak only for one thing. We have to understand we don't want the sword war from Russia. I don't trust him, and I will not. And he also doesn't trust me. It's understandable. But this is the problem that my feeling that his goal was occupation of all our territory, of all our country. And I really want to hear and to see that that he will not come again.
This is a thrust game. Lavrov added that Russia's armed forces had already identified targets for retaliatory action and warned that the alleged attack would not go unanswered. He described the incident as an act of state terrorism. Meanwhile, the Russian foreign minister said the alleged strike occurred amid discussions over a potential peace settlement and added that while Moscow would remain engaged in negotiations, its position would be reassessed in light of the incident. Now, it was not immediately clear whether Putin was present at the Dolgi Borodi residence, a site historically used by several Soviet and Russian leaders. Now, separately, Putin on Monday instructed Russian forces to intensify operations to take full control of Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region after a senior commander said Russian troops were within 15 kilometers of the region's largest city. This is a development coming right here. Now, moving over to Gaza and the current development, Donald Trump says he wants swift progress to the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire plan, warning that Hamas must disarm within a short time frame or face serious consequences. Speaking after talks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Florida on Monday, the U.S. president said his administration was focused on accelerating the next stage of the agreement, which includes Hamas disarmament, the withdrawal of Israeli troops, and the beginning of Gaza's reconstruction. Trump said Israel had fully complied with the terms of the plan so far, despite continued Israeli military operations in Gaza since the ceasefire came into effect. He also stressed that moving forward depended largely on Hamas laying down its weapons. Take a look.
Charge of that from our side, but if they don't disarm as they agreed to do, they agreed to it, and then they'll be held to pay for them. And we don't want that. We're not looking for that, but they have to disarm within a fairly short period of time.
Under the second phase of the peace framework, a technocratic administration would be established in Gaza. Israeli forces would withdraw and reconstruction would begin. The plan took effect in October. However, critics argue that Netanyahu may seek to delay implementation by insisting on Hamas disarmament before any Israeli withdrawal. The Israeli leaders also faced accusations of avoiding substantive engagement on a long-term political future for Palestinians. Hamas officials have countered that full disarmament should coincide with tangible steps towards the creation of an independent Palestinian state. Now, when asked whether Israel was moving too slowly, Trump dismissed concerns, saying his focus was in parties he believes and not meeting their commitment. Since the ceasefire began, at least 414 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces in Gaza, according to Hamas-run health ministry. The Israeli military says it has acted only in response to ceasefire violations and has blamed Hamas for the death of 3 Israeli soldiers during the same period. Meanwhile, Trump also used the briefing to warn Iran against resuming nuclear or ballistic missile development, saying the United States could support further military action if Tehran were found to be rebuilding its weapons programs. Let's take a look.
And speaking of Iran, I hope they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup. So I hope Iran is not trying to build up, as I've been reading, that they're building up weapons and other things. And if they are, they're not using the sites that we obliterated, but they're using possibly different sites. We know exactly where they're going, what they're doing. And I hope they're not doing it, because we don't want to waste the fuel on a B-2. It's a 37-hour trip both ways. I don't want to waste a lot of fuel.
However, Iran rejected the threat, with a senior advisor to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warning that any aggression would trigger an immediate and severe response. Tehran has denied pursuing nuclear weapons and described the recent reports about renewed activity as psychological warfare. The United States President claimed that the American strikes in June severely damaged Iran's nuclear facilities, a claim Iran disputes. He also added that U.S. intelligence suggested Tehran may be attempting to use alternative sites, as Trump has just stated. Meanwhile, regional security issues beyond Gaza were also discussed at the meeting, including Syria and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Trump said he hoped Israel would establish a peaceful relationship with Syria's new president, Ahmed al-Shara, who took power after Bashar al-Assad was removed last year. Israel has, however, expressed deep suspicion of Syria's new leadership and carried out airstrikes in government buildings in Damascus in July. Despite this, President Donald Trump pointed to recent U.S. efforts to lift sanctions on Syria as a sign of engagement. The talks underscore Washington's broader push to reshape Middle East security arrangement amid ongoing conflict and fragile ceasefires across the region. Now, still on, looking at a recent development when it comes to Africa and the struggle for self-determination. Israel has formally recognized Somaliland as an independent state, becoming the first country to do so more than 3 decades after the region declared independence from Somalia, a move that has drawn widespread international condemnation and reopened debate over sovereignty, secession, and regional security in the Horn of Africa. The decision was announced on Friday and immediately welcomed in Somaliland's capital, Hargeisa, where residents celebrated what local leaders described as a long-sought diplomatic breakthrough. Somalia, however, rejected the move outright, calling it a violation of its territorial integrity and an attack on its national unity. Let's take a look.
I want you to know that I'm signing now, as we speak, Israel's official recognition of Somaliland and its right of self-determination. Our friendship is seminal and historic. So I'm very, very happy and I'm very proud of this day. And I want to wish you and the people of Somaliland the very, very best there. I think this will be a great opportunity for expanding our partnership. We intend to work together with you on economic fields, on agriculture, in the fields of social development, all the things that we hope we can assist you. And we obviously believe in this friendship. And I have to tell you that there's a lot of excitement here in Israel as well. So I want to use this opportunity, sir, to invite you to an official visit to Israel at your convenience. And I hope very much to see you here soon. And this is a wonderful day. It's a historic day. And of course, I'll communicate to President Trump your willingness and desire to join the Abraham Accords. So thank you, Mr. President. Please convey my best regards and the best regards of the people of Israel to the independent people of Somaliland.
Netanyahu's announcement of his official recognition of Somaliland. But when we think of Somaliland, what do we think of Ambazonia? What do we think of Somalia's government? Somalia's government has since rallied regional and international support, with countries including Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Nigeria, Iran, and Qatar, as well as the African Union, condemning Israel's recognition. China also joined the criticism, warning against support for separatist movement and stressing the principle of state sovereignty. Also at the United Nations Security Council, the issue prompted an emergency session. While most members expressed concern over the precedent set by Israel's action, the United States defended Israel, arguing that the international response contrasted sharply with earlier unilateral recognitions of Palestinian statehood, a comparison that further politicized the debate. Israel, for its part, said the recognition was not intended as a hostile act towards Somalia and insisted it did not rule out dialogue between the parties. Israeli officials framed the decision as support for Somaliland's claim to self-determination and as an opening for deeper cooperation within the region. Now we see that the recognition by Israeli Prime Minister of a movement long seeking for recognition, Somaliland, was welcomed by a breakthrough, a share of celebration. And then this brings us down to our attention to Ambazonia, where the struggle for self-determination, though persistent, continues to be a backbone for Ambazonians. No matter how long it will take, definitely they will be recognized. Somalia's recognition reflects the pain of delay and the acknowledgement when not denied. Well, they might be delayed, but then it will not be denied. Now let's take a dive into Somaliland's long quest for recognition. Somaliland, a semi-arid territory along the Gulf of Aden, declared independence in 1991 following the collapse of Somali's central government and the overthrow of military ruler Said Barre. The declaration came after years of conflict in which tens of thousands were killed and major towns were destroyed. Despite lacking international recognition, Somaliland has maintained relative stability compared with much of Somalia. It operates its own government institutions, holds elections, maintains security forces, and issues its own currency. Supporters of independence point to its distinct colonial history as a former British protectorate and to clan dynamics that differ from those in southern Somalia. Somalia, however, continues to regard Somaliland as an integral part of its territory and has consistently opposed any move toward international recognition, warning that such actions could encourage fragmentation across Africa. Meanwhile, strategic calculations behind Israel's move, what are they? Beyond diplomatic symbolism, analysts say Israel's decision is driven by strategic considerations, particularly security concerns linked to the Red Sea and the wider Middle East. Somaliland's location near critical maritime routes makes it geopolitically significant, especially amid heightened tensions involving Iran and its regional allies. Israeli analysts have argued that closer ties with Somaliland could provide strategic depth in the Red Sea corridor, which has become increasingly volatile since the outbreak of the Gaza war in October 2023. Israel has previously carried out strikes in Yemen in response to attacks by the Iran-aligned Houthi movement, which has since warned that any Israeli presence in Somaliland would be treated as a military target. Now, we know that there have also been unconfirmed reports suggesting contacts between Israel and Somaliland over the possible resettlement of Palestinians displaced from Gaza. Claims both sides have played down. Now, Somalia and Palestinian officials, however, have linked Israel's recognition of Somaliland to broader concerns about forced displacement. Also, US-based Africa analysis Israel's recognition fits into a broader effort to counter Iranian influence and also to secure intelligence and security footholds near key maritime checkpoints. Worth adding the regional and international implications when we take a deeper dive into these. We see that the African Union has long resisted recognizing Somaliland, fearing that doing so could embolden separatist movement elsewhere on the continent and weaken already fragile state. But what do you think about Ambazonian? Analysts warn that unilateral recognitions risks undermining regional stability by encouraging breakaway regions to seek external alliances without the consent of central government. Notably, some countries with close ties to Somaliland have remained publicly silent. The United Arab Emirates, which operates a port and military facility in the territory, has not issued a formal response, while Ethiopia, which recently signed a controversial port access deal with Somaliland, has adopted a cautious stance amid ongoing efforts to repair relations with Somalia. Meanwhile, Somaliland had hoped the momentum created by Israel's move would prompt other countries, particularly the United States, to follow suit. However, United States President Donald Trump has indicated no immediate plans to recognize Somaliland, signaling that Egypt's decision may remain an isolated diplomatic gamble rather than the start of a broader shift. For now, Israel's recognition has intensified diplomatic fault lines across the Horn of Africa, raising fresh questions about self-determination, territorial integrity, and the role of great power politics in unresolved African statehood disputes. Now, looking at Ivory Coast still in Africa. Ivory Coast ruling party has strengthened its control over parliament, winning nearly 3/4 of seats in elections held on Saturday, according to the Independent Electoral Commission. The rally of hopefuls for democracy and peace secured 197 of 255 seats, around 77%, expanding its majority to just 2 months after President Alassane Ouattara was re-elected for a 4th term. Voter turnout remained low at approximately 35%, reflecting a continuing decline in citizen participation. The RHDP dominated its northern strongholds, sometimes taking all available seats, and made gains in southern and western regions traditionally loyal to the opposition. Election authorities reported the vote was largely peaceful, with only isolated incidents that did not affect overall results. Meanwhile, opposition parties suffered significant losses. Democratic Party of Ivory Coast saw its representation halved, while the party of former President Laurent Gbagbo, which had called for a boycott, lost all its seats. The outcome consolidates President Ouattara's control over key institutions, reinforcing stability, according to supporters. Critics, however, warn it could shrink political space and weaken democratic checks. Now, until next time, this is where we'll be drawing the curtain on today's Flash News. Remember, we'll bring you untold stories and Undaunted at the top of the hour, 8 p.m. Until then, do have a pleasant day and stay safe.